keep getting requests to react to more EmpLemon. And you know what? I ain't gonna complain. 'Cause I don't know. I know this is about home movies. I know it's gonna be talking about one of my favorite shows of all time that I have. I don't remember anything that happens in it because I was a kid watching it when I was supposed to be asleep. I want to see what exactly he talks about in this video. Because I love home movies.
Brought to you
I need
by
to rewatch
Raycon
it.
earbuds. Stay tuned till the end for more information.
Hello,
Raycons
Your
are good.
Honor. As you can see, I've decided to make a video essay in place of a written essay.
Generally speaking, kids are dumb. They tend to
Yeah,
not know anything
agreed.
about anything, and very few of them have any skills that can be considered even somewhat valuable to society. Being an adult is better in just about every conceivable way. But despite our
Also agree.
overwhelming advantages, there's one aspect where kids have us absolutely beat. In 1972, British progressive rock band Jethro Tull.
Not where I was expecting this video to go. Yeet. I mean, I was already interested, but you really got me interested now.
Released their fifth studio album, Thick as a Brick, an epic tale told through the ambitious format of one continuous piece of music. Frontman Ian Anderson credited the fantastical lyrics of the composition to an 8-year-old boy named Gerald Bostick. The album was so imaginative it made sense to many that it could only have come from the wild mind of a child. When it comes to creativity, kids are king, and 20 years ago, one show helped many of us channel our inner 8-year-old. "1999 was a landmark time for American animation. The year introduced us to some of the most
Spoiler alert for Attack on Titan. That's what happens.
Introduced us to some of the most influential cartoons of the 21st century, but lost among the titans of its era was a series that received far less fanfare. Home Movies was a largely forgotten show that debuted on a largely forgotten network.
For anybody who's actually seen Attack on Titan, that was not actually a spoiler.
UPN was
and you know it.
Viacom's awkward attempt to establish a new broadcast network on American television. Across its 11 years of operation, it struggled to even make a dent on mainstream culture. If you were watching American television in the 90s, you probably weren't watching UPN. In 1999, the 6 major networks broadcast 164 unique shows on the air. Arranged by viewership, UPN aired 22 of the 25 least watched shows of the year. And second from the very bottom of the list was the subject of today's video. Home Movies premiered on April 26, 1999 to historically low ratings, the worst the network had ever seen in its time slot. Just 30 days later, UPN pulled the plug and canceled the show after only 5 episodes. During its brief stint, the series received generally unfavorable reviews from critics. The launch was one of the most disastrous in the history of television, and it's not hard to see why the 90s audience weren't exactly crazy about the new cartoon. Pretty much everything
Was that the Finger 11 guy? Looked like it.
about the show was unorthodox. The art style was crude and childlike. The series was animated using the incredibly niche technique of squiggle vision, which some viewers found hard to watch. The show's dialogue was almost completely improvised, which was practically unheard of for any other animated program at the time. The comedy was subtle and understated in an era of bombastic, in-your-face humor. It was a show that looked like a Newgrounds animation and sounded like a podcast. Needless to say, Home Movies was unlike anything else in its era, and hardly anyone was willing to watch something so different. However, not every series needs to be loved by millions of people. Sometimes all a show has to do is impress just one. During its short run, Home Movies...
Dude, my taste in shows and my taste in music's similar. It's hard to get people to actually listen to and like what I like.
He's managed to pick up one important fan in Khaki Joe,
Except for
an
the people on the internet who recognize what legendary content is.
executive at Cartoon Network. She loved the show so much that she convinced the network to renew Home Movies for 3 more seasons. On September 2nd, 2001, Home Movies would re-debut as the very first program on Cartoon Network's brand new animation
Those were all incredible shows.
block Adult Swim. Now loosely scripted and flash animated, the show had turned over a new leaf. And gradually, over several years, audiences finally began to warm up to it. The series has since developed a cult following and has been critically reassessed
You saying I'm in a cult?
as one of the best cartoons of its era. So how exactly did Home Movies age so well? On its surface, it's a relatively simple show about the trivialities of childhood, but where the series truly shines is through its meta-contextual significance. Home Movies has possibly the most to say of any show about the nature of the creative process.
This is crazy, but maybe you might be working a little too much on your films.
That's what people say, but
Creativity is a concept that has always been somewhat enigmatic to us. The ancient Greeks did not have any words in their language corresponding to the idea of people as creators. For centuries, philosophers did not consider art to be creative, positing that the role of an artist was to simply interpret what was already provided by nature. In the Middle Ages, creativity was heavily intertwined with religion, and artistic spontaneity was attributed to flashes of divine inspiration. It was only during the Renaissance when philosophers began to consider that human beings were capable of producing creative works on their own volition. Soon enough, creative work had become a legitimate profession. Artists achieved worldwide fame for their unmatched ability to bring their imagination to life. By the 20th century, creative works laid the foundation for billion-dollar industries. Entertainment media eventually became so inescapable that the tools of the trade became accessible to just about anybody, setting up the premise of Home Movies, the story of a boy
Does he ever become a successful filmmaker, or does he give up his dream? I think we need a sequel show.
and his camera. Throughout the show, we get to experience the adventures and misadventures of Brendan Small, who makes movies with his friends Jason and Melissa. Brendan's parents have recently divorced, and filmmaking provides him with a much-needed escape from a turbulent period in his life. Although his movies are far from the best, he's not afraid to keep trying. The character of Brendan Small is a not-so-subtle nod to series co-creator Brendan Small. Home Movies presents a rather unique symmetry between its creators and characters. The essential conflict portrayed within the show parallels the external conflict experienced by the show. Home Movies was not a show for everyone, as evidenced by how few people actually watched it while it was on the air.
Man, I watched the shit out of it. I watched it all the time.
Those who enjoyed it likely related to the characters based on their own creative and personal struggles. Brendan is a 21st century Charlie Brown. He's a natural underdog, grappling with the unfairness of a world beyond his control. Within the show, Brendan's movies are not exactly the pinnacle of filmmaking. They are often riddled with technical errors and general sloppiness befitting of a novice who's figuring things out as they go along. But even though his movies may appear crude, they are far from aimless. Brendan takes his filmmaking very seriously, more so than pretty much anything else in his life. He sees his ability to make movies as his defining attribute. It's easy for us to dismiss children's activities as inherently goofy and frivolous, but Brendan's artistic endeavors are far more meaningful. Nothing he creates is arbitrary. Each one of his movies has a clear vision, even if his ability to execute may be lacking. Brendan's plight is something experienced by all creative people at one point or another. No matter how brilliant our vision may be, we're always caught.
I need to know the story behind the Green Simpsons. If he ever says it in a video, please comment what the video is, because I need to know.
In a tug-of-war between imagination and feasibility. Home Movies offers a powerful commentary on the barriers to creative fulfillment.
so you probably won't be investing in my movie then.
No, if it requires money.
Our society has a somewhat paradoxical relationship with creative works. The most illustrious
Side note to anybody who doesn't know, that the coach from this show is also Archer, and also the camp lead or camp counselor who turns into a can of peas, I believe, in Wet Hot American Summer. And he plays a whole bunch of other characters that I don't remember. I just know that he was a can.
Artists, musicians, and movie stars are often among the most revered people in the world. We each dedicate a significant amount of our free time engaging with creatively motivated products like film, music, and video games. Nearly all of us would agree that these things vastly improve our quality of life. However, despite how much we enjoy the fruits of our most successful creators, modern society is generally unforgiving to the process it takes to get there. For as much as powerful institutions like to spout platitudes about the importance of creativity, the fact of the matter is that our society is not very welcoming to creative people. Creative ideas are inherently risky. Each innovative new solution is usually preceded by a dozen failures. It's for this reason why the vast majority of jobs in the economy don't value creativity as a skill.
Damn.
There's no need to
He hit his
reinvent the
head
wheel if the
a
wheel
lot.
itself is good enough. When most jobs can be accomplished by mindlessly rehearsing an already proven formula, the ability to think creatively is worthless. This is why artists who haven't hauled in gazillions in revenue don't tend to receive much
That Beyonce?
prestige. Without impressive dollar amounts to show for it, the value of creativity is intangible, which for the average person might as well be nothing. Because of their perceived lack of value, creative people often find themselves being overlooked, invalidated, or even stigmatized for their ambitions. It's an attitude all too familiar to the creators of home movies. Back in 1999, Brendan Small and Lauren Bouchard were two young and unproven minds looking to make something truly distinct and avant-garde. The resulting project nearly ended up costing them a rare opportunity at success in the entertainment industry. Both creators would eventually go on to have long and successful careers. But if it weren't for
Hold on, I want to go back and see. Oh. That guy did Bob's Burgers, Lucy, the Daughter of the Devil. Never heard of Central Park. Don't know what that is.
both creators would eventually go on to have long and
Oh, he was a writer for Metalocalypse. Don't know Galacticon. Kinda know Motor City.
successful careers. But if it weren't for a chance rescue from a lone network executive, their creative contributions may have never had a chance to flourish. It's easy to recognize their skill in hindsight, but were they really any less talented 22 years ago when their grand artistic vision was cancelled after just 5 episodes?
We got ourselves an indie filmmaker here. Isn't that exciting, class?
Wait a minute.
Guitarmageddon. That's actually a good band name.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I've only been in the film industry for 35 years.
It's often difficult for us to evaluate whether any given creative project
That
will
guy
be
sounded a little
successful.
bit like Archer.
Bigwig entertainment executives have the resources to create anything they want, and most of it usually ends up sucking. Of course, these people aren't fools. Somewhere along the way, the entertainment industry figured out that movies and TV shows don't have to be good to make a boatload of cash. It's completely logical for media moguls to invest their money in the 10,000th superhero reboot versus an unproven original concept. The problem is that once all the money is made and enough time has passed, the product that remains is not very inspiring. Logic is often antithetical to creativity, and creativity is often antithetical to profitability.
Okay, let's see what we got.
What are you working on?
Nothing, I'm just writing a review.
There's a reason why the most critically acclaimed art tends to be the most niche. Truly great works are never meant to please everyone.
This is about to be Beach House.
The strength of art lies in its power to alienate. If you
Thought it
wanna
was
see
about to be
something new
Beach
and
House.
innovative, it's gonna have to be a little alien. Prioritizing mass appeal and financial gain misses the point of creation entirely. Historically, the greatest art has almost always come from people who have had nothing to lose and no one to impress. By removing ourselves from the expectations and limitations of others, we become truly free to pursue our vision. Creativity may be the ultimate exercise in autonomy. It's an activity through which we have complete control over our domain. Mastering the creative process requires overcoming one's limitations while retaining as much autonomy as possible.
Home movies is a passion project, let's say, in that we fight for the things that we think the show should be, always.
Both Brendan's movies and the show that encompasses them were heavily limited in budget and manpower, but found a way to make the most of what they had. We can still find them endearing because there's never any question of who's in creative control. Home movies may not be the most polished product, but it's charming in the way it allows the personality of its creators to shine through. Art is ultimately a metaphysical extension of the self, meaning that just like us, it's dynamic. In a long-term creative project like
Man, I don't know what it was about it, but it like hypnotized me and it glued me to the screen. It wasn't really funny. Wasn't really that interesting, but I just kept watching because it was like they were my friends or something.
a TV show, it's intriguing to watch it evolve along with its creators. In home movies, there's a tangible sense of progression through the seasons. The creators get more confident in their storytelling, the writing becomes more sophisticated, the actors really start to settle into their characters. Even the animation noticeably improves as the show's animators develop their techniques. When given the space to do so, art can come alive. Home Movies was fortunate to wind up on what was the perfect destination for creative liberty. Adult Swim was the first television studio to truly embrace experimental
Yeah, well, it ain't like that no more.
creator-driven content. Tragically, the vast majority of commercial artists are given nowhere near as much freedom over their creative destiny. Perhaps the most difficult constraint any creator faces is having to navigate through a system that fundamentally misunderstands our goals and motivations. By and large, society is run by the creatively bankrupt, for the simple reason that society is run by adults. Ever since the 20th century, psychologists have attempted to empirically define and measure creativity. Across repeated studies spanning decades, researchers found that unlike nearly every other skill, creativity tends to decrease as we get older. When it comes to creative reasoning, specifically divergent thinking, no one is better than children. In 1968, George Land and Beth Jarman were commissioned by NASA to devise a creativity test for the agency's engineers and scientists. After applying their test to nearly 300,000 adults, they found that only 2% scored at what they defined as a genius level. Just out of curiosity, the researchers ran the same test on a group of 1,000 preschoolers. Out of this average sample of children aged no higher than 5 years old, the amount who achieved a genius score was 98%. Somewhere along the way to adulthood, we appear to unlearn the skill of creative thinking. Of course, there are some intuitive factors for why this happens. Children lack the knowledge or life experience to make informed decisions, so they have to rely more on their imaginations to make sense of the world. As we get older, we become capable of more logical reasoning, and creativity becomes less important in our day-to-day lives. Adults are also
Are you saying I liked home movies as a kid because I'm actually a genius? That's what I'm gonna take it as.
far more cognizant of social perception. This newfound concern over how we appear to others contributes to possibly the biggest obstacle to creativity: fear. Specifically, the fear of failure. When we enter adulthood, there's an expectation that we should be at least competent at what we do. It's often shameful to show a lack of aptitude in any given skill. Failure causes us to get ridiculed by our peers and punished by our employers. Many adults have been conditioned into the mindset that failure is not an option, to such an extent that they try to eliminate the risk of failure in even the most minor circumstances.
Overrated. I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Children, on the other hand, are not encumbered by such strict pressure to perform. They are mostly free to try and fail as much as they please. Creativity cannot prosper in a culture of fear and anxiety. To truly reach our creative potential, we can't allow failure to paralyze our willingness to explore new ideas. After all, the fastest way to improve at anything is to learn from our mistakes. Speaking of learning, One major factor which has exacerbated the decline in creative thinking has to do with the one place where children are required to spend most of their time.
Failing. Homework. Much, much more homework.
It's no secret that public education doesn't exactly have the best track record as of late. As schools have grown increasingly obsessive over standardized testing, they have become notorious for stifling creativity. The structure of the modern education system overwhelmingly forces students to think inside the box. School very rapidly teaches kids that their imaginations are irrelevant. Getting good grades almost entirely depends on your ability to robotically memorize arbitrary facts and figures. It's no wonder why so many young creative minds feel so antagonized by modern education.
When I was in school, I didn't get straight A's. I was like ABC student. I felt like I was above a D, so I would never really go below C, except for a couple of classes I just thought were complete bullshit. I hated the teachers, so I failed them outright. I just didn't do the work. Other classes I did fine. And I will note, in the classes that I failed, I never got held back, because at the end of the year test, advanced. Because I could do the work. I just wasn't going to do the work if it was bullshit, and I didn't want to do it.
As a student, you're given an ultimatum to either abandon your instinctive curiosity or get punished for failing to conform to the system. In home movies, Brendan is a character who embodies this struggle. He is very clearly a bright and motivated kid, but he finds himself totally disconnected from conventional education.
Same.
In a broader sense,
That's probably a big reason I connected with the show.
this disconnect reflects the underlying conceit of the entire show. Home Movies is not just a show about how kids thrive with creativity, but also how adults struggle without it. The structure of the series fundamentally divides its characters into two distinct groups. While the kids often soak up the spotlight, it's the adults who provide the show's most nuanced commentary. Pretty much every major adult character in the series suffers from a significant flaw. The tedium of adult life has left them uninspired and unfulfilled. You get the impression that each of them has a substantial void in their lives which they're all trying to fill. This motif is punctuated by overtones of divorce and loneliness which linger throughout the entire series. Home Movies exposes a great irony in the adult world's perceived superiority over children. Episodes typically feature both children and adults dealing with a similar problem and displaying similar levels of powerlessness to solve them. The series questions the prevailing belief that our logical adult thinking is inherently beneficial. While concrete reasoning allows us to make good decisions, it can simultaneously inhibit us from exploring better ones. Abundance in knowledge can make us more informed, but it can also make us more cynical, stubborn, and prejudicial. Home Movies tends to portray its adult characters as being rigidly set in their own ways. They often have a hard time expressing their honest thoughts and opinions to others, choosing instead to remain burdened by their own discontent. By contrast, the children of the show rarely display any of these characteristics. Creative thinking allows them to be far more earnest, cooperative.
Dude, I don't know any kids that are creative thinkers. I actually don't know any adults that I was friends with who were creative thinkers. Nobody really made anything or tried to make any kind of art or anything. They were all just kind of doing things. I never really understood it because I've always been writing stuff. I got this file cabinet over here. It is just full of like ideas for books, for movies, for shows, for anime, for different YouTube projects that I was gonna do before I ended up doing this.
And flexible. As adults, we're used to interacting with children in a condescending way, a relationship that doesn't have to be so one-sided. The most harmonious moments within the series happen when both the kids and adults engage with each other as equals. It turns out that despite everything we know, we can still learn a thing or two from children.
Don't get into show business, Josie. Don't spend your life being dragged down by projects that you'd lose interest in and have to sneak away from.
Brandon!
Where's my childhood gone, Josie?
These days, creativity remains an elusive skill in the
And I
adult
felt
world.
that.
The way our society works, most creative people won't end up being successful. But in a strange twist of fate, the most successful people are creative. In the 1950s, psychologist E.P. Torrance developed one of the first comprehensive tests of creative thinking. Over the following decades, researchers began to realize that the Torrance test was a stronger predictor of lifetime achievement than any other known method. Longitudinal research suggests that it is creativity, not IQ nor academic grades, which correlates the strongest with individual success. In 2010, IBM surveyed over 1,500 CEOs from around the world and found that 60% cited creativity as their single most important leadership quality. Great scientific minds like Isaac Asimov and Albert Einstein have both expressed that creativity is vital in even the most logical fields. Those who master the creative process can go as far as their imagination takes them. For something so influential, it's a shame that so few of us actually retain it as we grow up. Research has shown that even children are becoming less creative compared to previous generations. In life, we take a lot of things for granted and fail to appreciate their greatness until long after they're gone. On April 4, 2004, Home Movies went out on the air for the final time. The series made it to 52 episodes, surviving 10 times longer than its initial ill-fated run. It exceeded pretty much every expectation that its
Yeah,
creators
it's only
could have
52
envisioned.
episodes.
But
I'm gonna have to
sadly,
check that
all
out.
good shows must eventually come to an end. Home Movies chose to finish its run in the only way it could. A big part of the freedom we get from creative projects is the power to walk away. At the end of Home Movies, Brendan and his friends lose their passion for making movies. As is the fate with almost all kids, they had grown past their creative endeavors. When it was all said and done, they realized that the movies were no longer
Man.
needed.
That's so sad. But what is he gonna do?
They had served their purpose. For the first time in the series, Brendan is ready to step out from behind the camera and into reality. Home Movies was a show that was remarkably ahead of its time. Just 1 year after the series ended, we were all introduced to a little-known website called YouTube, a place where anyone can become world famous from making home movies. Thanks to the internet, it's never been a better time to be creative. And while many of us may have unlearned how to think creatively, none of us ever truly forget it. If you want to reclaim your imagination, a good place to start is learning from the case of Gerald Bostick, who, like the kids in Home Movies, doesn't actually exist. They were all created by adults who remembered how to think like an 8-year-old. As the great painter Pablo Picasso once said, all children are artists. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up.
You're gonna have to age it like wine or whiskey and refine it and pull out your flavors and mature it. Oh, hey.
Welcome, Rusty. I've been expecting you. Come, have a seat.
Oh God, what are we selling this time?
What if I told you that nearly everyone you know...
Why is he green? Is he green because the Simpsons are green, or the Simpsons green because he's green? And why is he green?
...is a slave to the system. Have you ever looked at the world around you and had the strange feeling that something is not quite right? You feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes.
Are you suggesting that we're all imprisoned in some kind of simulated reality?
No, we are definitely in the real world. The problem is that the real world sucks, and spineless bureaucrats make us do a bunch of annoying, pointless crap like paying taxes. You see it when you look out your window, when you turn on your television, This society is simply unfair to people like us.
So what are we supposed to do about it?
I cannot give you a harmonious solution to all of the world's problems. What I can offer you is a way out. I am speaking, of course, about the Raytrix.
The Raytrix.
Rusty, have you ever heard of the term Sigma
This whole
Man?
thing. Is this whole thing a Raycon ad?
I'm not sure I have.
Most unfortunate souls are born into this world to be nothing more than sheeple. Fools who will gladly pay outrageous prices for premium wireless earbuds without even a second
Alright.
thought. It is
I'll
the
keep watching
bull
though,
that has
'cause I'm
been pulled
interested.
over your ears to deafen you from the truth. However, the Sigmas of the world reject this premise. They recognize that there is an alternative to other premium audio brands that starts at just half the price.
No way. You can't
Wait,
mean...
what?
That is correct. I'm referring to
Half the
Raycon
price.
earbuds, your key to unlocking the Raytrix. With this state-of-the-art technology, you can tune out the stupidity of the world around you.
Oh man,
anywhere, at any
world is
time.
stupid.
Let the sheeple graze on the lies of the system which imprisons them, while you bask in the amazing audio quality of the Raytrix, free from the shackles
I
of
want
our
the red
noisy
ones.
society. Rusty, I've always suspected that you are a true Sigma. Now is the time to prove it. Of course, no one can
The
be
red
told
ones.
what the Raytrix is.
Pick the red
You have
ones.
to hear it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed, and go back to paying whatever other premium audio brands want to charge you. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how far downward the spiral goes.
Yes, let's go. Woo, yeah, baby.
What if I told you that you can purchase your own pair of Raycon everyday earbuds by visiting
I know this song.
buyraycon.com/EmpLemon or by visiting the link in the description beneath this very video.
Where have
Once
I
in the
heard this
main
song?
frame, you must input
Other
the
YouTube
code
videos,
HOLIDAY
or is it
to
from
gain
a video
access
game?
to the 15% off site-wide discount, and only then can you truly harness the gift. Of course, with free shipping and returns on.
You know, I've always wanted to get me a pair of Raycons. Anyway, home movies. One of my favorite shows as a kid. I don't remember anything about it. Sparked up some fond memories watching this video, and I remembered why I liked it as a kid. I'm gonna have to rewatch all, what was it, 52 episodes? EmpLemon. Oh man, 10 out of 10.